Mr. Investor, welcome back to the channel, baby. So you guys must be wondering, where you been, man? Well, yeah, I got a job as a nurse, baby. Agency nurse. I had to get my shmoney because I want to buy more BNGO. I'm so bullish on this company long term. I was accumulating a lot of BNGO. I'm just over 2,000 shares now. I'm like 2,100, nearly 2,200. I'm just going to pick up also some Nano Dimension. And Palantir's took a dippity dip and I'm planning to scoop up. Today we're going to be talking about Bionano Genomics Whale, Mark Nejma, and him meeting Eric Holmlin. I also want to talk about this report from the Government Office for Science here in the UK, Genomics Beyond Health. It's going to have some facts and figures. I'm just going to briefly cover just one point in it because I'm going to save the rest for a next video when I can go and do a deep analysis. Now before we begin, please remember none of this is financial advice, it's for entertainment only. Thank you to everybody who supported my channel. Thank you very much for everybody that likes, that subscribes, that drops me comments, and thank you to everybody, all my channel members and Patreon members. So let's get into this video. There was a meeting between Eric Holmlin and Bionano Genomics investor Mark Nejma from Newsweek. If you guys don't know this guy, he had 1 million shares in BNGO. He cut it down to 800,000 shares, and then he had this meeting with Eric Holmlin. So according to this video, when Mark had this meeting, he prepared some questions for Eric Holmlin. There were very specific questions he wanted answered. And he wanted to know the answers right away. He just wanted Eric Holmlin to get into facts and figures and answers.
One said, well, what is the state of the FDA? Has BNGO applied yet? If so, when, which disease or institutions will be the adoption with first?
So with that first question, he wouldn't be able to answer that question anyway if they were going for FDA approval, because he didn't tell the public that. He said specifically he's not going for FDA approval and they're going to do it through laboratory developed tests. So they're going to sell these laboratories the machine. They're going to let these laboratories develop their own tests, try and get the insurance reimbursement codes. And then these scientists, these laboratories can go and develop their own tests, and we can get money from consumable revenue. We can sell them the Sapphire, we can get consumable revenue coming in as they service their clients. And in this meeting, you should go and watch this video just to see what happens between them two in the meeting. It just seems like there's a breakdown in communication styles. It seems like, he wanted information, Mark wanted information with regards to, name dropping about clients, find out a list of who owns the Sapphire machines, and sometimes you can't get that. And none of us knows why this may be, why we can't get a list of all the clients, but of the clients that do publicly disclose and show their Sapphire machine with pride, they usually put it up on the Twitter, and BNGO and lots of the BNGO employees have no problem sharing and retweeting that. But maybe some of the others have these non-disclosure agreements in place where they don't want anybody to know what tech they've got and what they're using it for. So there were several questions also for scalability and also driving down the price of consumables.
From one gentleman in New York and one gentleman from UK. Will it be cancer or rare disease? Then I said, well, what area will drive consumable revenue? Consumable revenue presently is $500. When will it drive down to 100?
That one's a decent question, because if you're able to get the consumable chip lower from 500 down to 100, obviously the CEO can't give guidance, he can't give estimations of time, and he wouldn't want to give this because if he fails to deliver by that time, then he's going to disappoint shareholders. So he just didn't answer.
Questions in between, and I couldn't get an answer because Eric was up at the board and just constantly kind of avoiding the questions.
So Eric Holmlin avoided the specific questions, and he more wanted to kind of teach Mark about his long-term vision and the plan for what he has for Bionano Genomics. So the interesting part here is at 5 minutes 5 of this video, you'll be able to take it here.
There are 3,900 labs that can use OGM, and of those, there were maybe 100 people that made their decision. That's what his focus was. Equipment purchase. If the focus was not diagnostic. Eric stopped, started to get very animated and said they would not apply for FDA approval. I asked, how would you ever scale this if the focus was not diagnostic? He told me there are 3,900 labs that can use OGM. And of those, there were maybe 100 people that made their decision. That's what his focus was.
So if he focuses on the labs, he'll be able to get to the end consumer anyway, because the laboratories are going to develop their own tests. A lot of them may be looking at rare disease or cancer. But Mark wanted to know whether we're going to be going after this direct-to-consumer market, which is worth about 2.7 billion by 2025. So that's the direct-to-consumer testing market. This is according to the UK government site showing Genomics Beyond Healthcare report overview. But taking a look at ARK Invest research, if we look at gene sequencing, there's a $1.6 trillion market here. They're saying this is going to be more than $3 trillion overall in genetic editing, gene sequencing, and living therapies. And if we have all of these laboratories that we're targeting, say 3,900 of them, if they're all using these high throughput sequencers and the Sapphire could be used alongside them with optical genome mapping, then us being used on a one-to-one basis with these high throughput sequencers means that we could get a lot of consumable revenue coming in from these labs. 3,900 labs is good.
Equipment purchase. He felt that there was, that is where scalability would come from. I stopped Eric there and said, so to get those labs to make the decision to buy a machine, wouldn't it be better to drive the message from people that are focused on extending their life or their children or themselves? Eric said strongly, no, never.
And the reason being is because these laboratories are businesses. Although they're there for, the benefit of the consumer and they're in the healthcare industry and they, supposedly they want to make sure that they can diagnose people, they can make people's lives better, their clientele. But first and foremost, they're a business. So they're looking for cheaper, faster, and accurate. And that's where the drive is going to come from. So it seems like Eric's plan is to make the most out of this opportunity. It's to get in front of those decision makers, 100 of them, to get access to these 3,900 labs and put Sapphires in them. And all of those client bases in the labs, if they're looking for rare disease, if they're looking for cancer, they can create their own LDTs and they can offer their own testing.
Will the technology be driven by people? He doesn't want the general public to drive to the laboratories and ask for the lab test with OGM. Eric said, no way. People need karyotyping fish and others, like yourself, that has cancer. OGM is not for general population.
So as I said, his focus isn't on direct-to-consumer market. It's not on focusing on consumers going and demanding what optical genome mapping is, because a lot of people don't know what OGM is. I didn't know what OGM was until... So it seems like Eric Holmlin was trying to explain to Mark that, this is not going to drive adoption. This is not going to drive sales to the laboratory, them going there and demanding optical genome mapping, because the consumer doesn't know what OGM is. Lots of GPs, lots of doctors at the moment, they don't know about what optical genome mapping is. So I think the reason why Eric Holmlin is saying we're focusing on the labs is because he's going to be able to penetrate these first and he's going to be able to drive consumable revenue. He's going to get to those 100 decision makers, and after we get into those labs, 3,900 labs all have a Sapphire, for example, we can have money coming in for maintenance of machine, we can have software packages, maybe we can have also data analysis with BioDiscovery. So we have this recurring revenue where they're finding out and collecting all of this data, they're delivering testing services, but they're also collecting data and they need to make sense of this data. Some of those will be research labs, and by having BioDiscovery, we'll be able to put all of this data on a platform and let people host their data on the platform too. And then if you get into this kind of hosting model, this database hosting model where you have all the data in one place, you can actually start charging for it. So here there's access to different tiers, different levels. This is the UK Biobank, so it's something that the NHS did. They collected lots of data, they had all these participants who were willing to give their data, and they're charging researchers money for access to this data. So they can be charged up to £9,000 for the first 3 years access to data with scheduled updates, plus £3,000, that's 12 grand over 3 years. And back in April 1st 2021, this was a while ago, it could be a lot more researchers, but they approved the 20,000th researcher access to its unique biomedical database and research resource. So just say, for example, that they were spending top tier, that's 20,000 researchers paying top tier. That seems like a 240 million revenue just from allowing access to data. So there's different revenue models that could crop up here, and we're not sure what the master plan is of Eric Holmlin, but it just seems like he's focused on, the first step is getting this into labs. We need to get this up into labs, we need to get our revenue going. And the next question Mark asked was with regards to the software company BioDiscovery.
I asked Eric if he felt he had paid too much for the software company. He said no. I said, well, is this going to look bad on earnings? Eric said, what do you mean? I said, well, if you had $329 million in the third quarter, you spent $20 million in the third quarter, I'm assuming your costs are extremely high for the fourth quarter, since you have made that purchase. I stopped. I said, the share price is way down. Your new employees have stock options. Are you afraid some of them might leave the company? I was really getting perplexed in the beginning to think I was getting the runaround when he wouldn't.
So with regards to BioDiscovery and playing the long game, I don't think it was a bad acquisition at all. I think it was quite good because it opened us up to a different revenue stream, a different market. And take a look at that market. There's apparently a $50 billion space opening up in genomics. And apparently in this potential opportunity, there's going to be up to 1 million terabytes of genomic data by 2025. The genomic sequencing market is going to reach $25 billion by 2026, according to these guys, intensified by C19 oncology, rare disease, coupled with pangenomic studies. But the adjacent markets of storage, high-performance computing, lab automation, and AI will unlock a further 20 billion. So with all this genomic data analysis market coming to play and the vast amount of genomic data coming out, it seems like a good play to buy this data analysis company. So as Sham Sohail himself said from BioDiscovery, the CEO, he was basically saying that they get this data for their clients and they want to make sense of this data and turn it into usable information.
So what we're trying to do is to solve the last stage of what do we do with all that data? How do we turn the data into information that can be used by clinical labs and eventually clinicians in treating their patients?
So eventually it's going to reach the clinicians and they're going to be able to use that data to treat the patients. So by the end of this meeting, it seems like, the characters clashed. They had different communication styles. Eric Holmlin was trying to teach Mark, and Mark wanted specific answers as an investor for these questions on scalability. He wanted numbers, he wanted figures, he wanted to see the bigger picture and the goal. And they both had different visions of the company. So Eric Holmlin was trying to share his vision and Mark was also saying what his vision for the company was. In the end anyway, it resulted with Mark selling his shares. So he was a BNGO Whale. He had about 1 million shares. It went down to 800,000 because he had some stuff to pay, and then he sold his whole position in BNGO and wished us all the best. Some people said he sold too early since he held all the way through $15 and he ended up selling in the $1 range or $2 range. Here's some figures anyway. If Bionano Genomics was able to get one sapphire in each of these 3,900 labs, if each sapphire was getting the minimum of 240 consumables used per year, these are currently $450 a pop. That's about $108,000 per year. Then by them using the minimum of 240 consumables per year, this would generate Bionano Genomics $421 million. And I wanted to compare this and look at the trajectory for Illumina. So if we take a look at Illumina, over time since about 2005, if we take a look there, they were making about 23 mil here, 29 mil there, and eventually they got up to 1 billion per quarter. This is looking at the chart from the quarters of 2005 all the way up to 2021. In other news, Urban Stocks put up a tweet showing some dark pool levels, saying that there's been some dark pool buys for Bionano Genomics. These are sizes of hundreds of thousands of shares, nearly a million share purchase at $1.92. I'm going to cut this video here. I'm going to be back making video content. Last week I worked 72.5 hours, I think it was something crazy. I was working almost every single day and long hours too, but I'm still here. I'm still investing in BNGO. I've got over 2,000 shares now, 2,200 nearly, and I want to build it up to 10,000 shares because I have real conviction in this company. I think it's going to take quite a while. I've got a time horizon of 5 to 8 years, but we'll see how they scale it up from quarter to quarter and also how the business develops and what kind of revenues they're going to be getting. And I'm looking forward to seeing the earnings call March 22, 2022. That's a kind of estimated one for NASDAQ. It might be around mid-March, as Mark mentioned in his video. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember, none of this is financial advice. Is for entertainment only. I just tell you what I'm up to, and I'm going to continue buying Bionano Genomics. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about that UK Gov document talking about beyond healthcare, genomics beyond health. Anyways, I wish you guys all the best. Thank you so much for your love and support. Please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Mr. Investor Lot, over and out, baby.